might have been some misunderstanding about what's going on here today. The Dean Trakas roast was held on May 12th. I can't believe this many people would show up for an architectural talk. But I'm glad to see you. And you're going to get the same vivid personality that you would have gotten had you been there on May 12th. We certainly did have fun with that. If you missed it, you missed something. Dean just told me that he wasn't sure he's going to get through everything today. I said, well, nothing said we can't have a fourth part. I'm not going to promise it to you right now, but also nothing says that we can't have another Dean Trakas roast. I don't think, this town's full of characters, but I don't think we could have as much fun with any other one person as we have with Dean. This is the latest in our continuing series of talks, Tales of Tryon. Good news, wonderful crowd here today. We're going to have 2 more tales this year. We're running a little behind, but we're going to make up for lost time. October the 22nd, do I have that right, Joey Soderquist? Yeah, right. Okay, she's giving me thumbs up. October 22nd, she'll scold me now for not having my notes up here, but anyway, we'll deal with that later. October 22nd, Bruce Johnson. I think a lot of you probably know Bruce, well-known writer, historian from Asheville. Bruce wrote Scott, Zelda, and Tom, the book about Thomas Wolfe and the Fitzgeralds interacting with each other in our area about 4 years ago. And he has just come out with a wonderful book. I've reviewed the book, and it's going to be in the Tryon Daily Bulletin one day soon, and we have some copies available out here on a table in the hall. Bruce is going to talk about the 2 ladies who were the heart and soul for many years of Tryon toy makers, and I think most of you would probably know something about Eleanor Vance and Charlotte Yale. Yet they were very private people, and it was amazing how little was known about them until Bruce uncovered some things. No great surprises, 1 or 2 maybe. They were very modest ladies who believed their mission was to develop character in young people more than to turn out crafts. But they did a wonderful job of both. And actually, Bruce's book is entitled Biltmore Industries and Tryon Toy Makers and Wood Carvers, because these 2 ladies were behind both ventures. The first one at Biltmore with Mrs. Vanderbilt backing them, but long, marvelous career and contributed a lot to the area. And Bruce has uncovered some things that a historian needed to, thank God. And he is going to be making a talk at Holy Cross in the Parish Hall on Sunday afternoon, October 2nd. Now, the November tales, and I'm going to be brief and give Dean as much time as he needs, and I hope I don't pay for that statement. We're going to have 2 professional historians. Some of you may know David Whistlett's name, or his wife, Ann Whistlet. David is an emeritus professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Ann is a professor at Duke. They have written some wonderful, David has a great range of work, going back many years. But a lot of his work deals with the retailing of Appalachian cultural history, and not always necessarily getting it exactly right. Ann wrote a great book on the history of the building of the Blue Ridge Parkway about 20 years ago. And what Ann concentrates on in this book, as much as the parkway itself, is the interpretation of sites along it. What they got right about Appalachian history and what maybe they didn't always, but they have a very intriguing slant on things. They're both first-class scholars. This talk is going to be entitled Black Lives and Whitened Stories. It's going to deal largely with the Connemara property at Flat Rock, which all of us know as the Carl Sandburg property, but David and Ann are going to talk about the slaves that built this property when it was plantation and made it what it was, and the stories that have been told later. That's all I'm going to say, and I'm not going to tell you where it is because we don't know at this point. We're looking for the best possible venue, and I anticipate this talk will draw some people out of Henderson County, and we may have even more people than we do today. And I certainly think we will for Bruce as well. Let me tell you a word about Dean Trakas, not that I need to, but Dean has practiced architecture in Tryon for some years. We all know him and love him, despite himself. And He is a member of the Tryon Historic Preservation Commission, which is something that we need. I'm sure is going to be getting some publicity. I think a couple other members. I think I saw Julia Kellerman walk in the door. Where is she? Oh, behind the mask. Okay. This is a commission that's going to be playing more and more in activities as we go along in the next several years and trying from there on, I hope. At any rate, without further ado, I'm going to let Dean come up and give you his spiel, and we'll see whether we need to have another tale or not with him, but we're going to maybe place a time limit on him today. Yeah. We'll see. Okay, he says yes. I'll let him explain the rest of it to you. Thank you.
Okay, if it gets to be around about 7 o'clock, you can just get up and walk out. Or if anyone would like to start doing this to me about a minute after 6, then I'll understand. It's wonderful to see everybody here, and I'm very happy to be doing this again. This will be officially the 3rd installment of this tale of Tryon architecture. Just barely skimming the surface of this rich heritage we have in this town and the surrounding areas of just great architecture, great people that moved here, that commissioned such architecture, great architects that have either lived in this town or come to work in this town, and of course the great contractors, the great builders that built all these beautiful buildings. We are so blessed to have so many great craftsmen, then and now. I've tried to sort of cover as much variety in the different areas of Tryon and the different time periods of Tryon as I could, although it's impossible to even, again, to scratch the surface. I will say that I've said to several people on the way here that this would be the last one, because I said, this just takes so much time and effort, and I just don't see me having the energy to do this again. But as I look back and look at everything that I've compiled for this particular talk, I'm still saying, there's still a mountain. There's still a mountain of great architecture that we haven't even touched. And so, yeah, very likely that I might do this again one day, and I'm always open for suggestions to anybody of some places that I have not considered. But I particularly want to thank, of course, not only all of you for being here, but some of the folks have really helped me, and they helped me a lot. I mean, they've helped me in the past, and it starts with, of course, the wonderful board at the museum and all the encouragement they've given me, as in, come on, and then, but then, of course, some more folks for technical help and just people who, mostly the people who occupy these buildings or who own these buildings, who have been so generous to let me come in and spend some time with them, learn from them about these wonderful places, and then allow me to take some little pictures. Now, I'm going to tell you right away, like I've said before, can y'all hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's no professional photography in this. This is all via this, which is what most of us use all the time now. And so there's nothing truly spectacular about any photographs, but the resolution's enough where you can see a lot of the detail. And I'm not going to try to go into too much of the actual architectural detail, because I know a lot of you are as interested in the people who live there and the stories about the house as in the architectural detail itself. And it represents, of course, a big variety of different architectural styles, which is what Tryon's all about. We're such an eclectic mix of architectural styles, just like we're an eclectic mix of people and backgrounds. And that's what makes Tryon such a fascinating place to live. And it's been that way for 100 and some years. So with no further ado, I'd like to start talking about a house that I think most people in this town have either driven by, and maybe a few in this town have been lucky enough to get to enter into this house. And it is a house that belonged to what I call the first family of Tryon, and that would be the Erskine family. This is Lincoln. And this is The house, of course, for many years now has been occupied by our dear friends, Andy and Linda Haynes. And I'm not sure if Andy's here. No? Okay, then I can lie all I want to. But I'm sure there's some other folks connected to the family that could probably help me out. And I will also say that if anybody has any additional knowledge of any of these properties that I have left out or that needs to be mentioned, please, I invite you to stand up, come up here if you like, and join me in this presentation. Because my head's so full of stuff right now, it's hard to get things straight. So if I happen to say something that's not exactly right, I do encourage you to correct me, because I want there to be good knowledge out there, and so I'm not afraid to admit a mistake myself. So anyway, so Lincoln, that's that big beautiful house. You know, as you come up 108, it sits way up on the hill, very majestically. It's always been my favorite house. I have a lot of favorite houses in Tryon. This was my first favorite house in Tryon. This was originally, there's been two Lynn coats. And this Lynn coat sits on the foundation, essentially the ruins of the original Lynn coat. The original Lynn coat was built in 1892. Well, actually, started in 1893. But actually, Charles and Emma Payne Erskine fell in love with the Tryon area, like so many people did, and bought the entire hillside where Lynn coat sits. In 1892, after they had been to vacation several times here before. And of course, you know, they knew that they wanted to put their dream house in. So they engaged, most likely we think that they engaged a very, very famous architect called Richard Sharp Smith, who was also very famous for designing a number of other important buildings like the Empire State Building. And they started construction in 1893, the original Lynn coat. And Lynn coat, I did find out, is a Scottish term for cottage on a rocky hill, and that's what this is. And there's a lot of rocks here. And of course, it's currently in the Tudor style, and I think originally it was also a Tudor style. It wasn't quite as ornate as it is now, but it's all local. Everything on this house is locally sourced. All the rock work was quarried locally. All the wood, the timbers were all done locally. And so much of the carved woodwork, which of course is such a hallmark of so much of the Tryon architecture because of all our great woodworkers that we've had here, and Biltmore Industries, and just the huge talent we've had here. And I've talked about this many times before. And it was all built by local craftsmen. That's what's amazing. So anyway, they lived there very happily until 1916, and there was a fire, and they could burn to the ground, except for the rock foundation, and the rock foundation stayed intact. And so then eventually they rebuilt. It actually stood in ruins for several years. In fact, many times you could just drive by and see the ruins. It was almost like an ancient archaeological place, you know. And eventually, their daughter, Susan, and her husband, Carol Rogers, began to rebuild Lynn coat. And then at that point in time, they engaged the very prominent architect of Hendersonville, Earl Stillwell, who designed a couple other important hallmarks in this town, including our Tryon Theater, and he was a very, very famous architect, to redo the house. They built on the same foundations. And of course, more ornate, more windows, more of a exotic structure than the originals. But there's so much really, really great detail. That's more of the front of the house, and you can see all the great stonework, and you can see the half timbering, and you can see the patterned stone. I'm trying to go forward. Hello. There. You can see the detailing within the gables and the herringbone pattern, etc., of the actual stonework within the gables. And of course, then there's the stucco, and of course the leaded glass windows, and the steep pitch, and the shakes on the roof. The English clay tile, of course, is the original house had shakes, but the rebuild has this beautiful English tile on it. And so let's see, and there's a good shot of the front looking up close, I could just look at that all day long, and for some reason that's not showing up either. Okay, and there's a good detail of that main building. That's just there's so much individual craft expertise that put into that. All the craftsmen had their own artistic and all creative part that they put into this thing. So none of this was actually drawn. This was all put in by all the craftsmen. They all had their own little part to play in this thing, which I think makes it that much more amazing. That's just a detail of the massive lintels and these stone walls and the beautiful glass that Andy and Lynn, of course, they've upgraded over the years. And that's another detail, that magnificent fireplace right there, chimney, and then that's around the corner. That's another example of that interesting herringbone stone in the timber. That's going around the side. That's the back side of the house. And then that's just my favorite part of the house right there. That's the end of the house. I guess I think it's the north end of the house where their swimming pool is. Beautiful grounds, of course, all around. And that's to me the most intimate part of the house. It's where they spend a lot of time. And again, that's looking down from that terrace down onto the main front of the house there. And that's where it was put on the register. There's several buildings in my presentation today that actually are on the register. I think Tryon's amazing to have. Polk County has, I think, 23 buildings on the register, and I think that's amazing for our little county of less than 20,000 people. I think it's amazing that we have that many on the register. So, I can't remember that. Emma commissioned that, and I think maybe Frank Arthur did that, who was the great wood carver. But I'm spacing on that. But there they are. Hello, Andy and Linda. Can you help me?
My grandmother, Susan Erskine Rogers, took wood carving lessons from Frank Arthur, who was the man in town who did that. And that was a little exercise that she did, and that is on the woodshed door. That's a little handle of the woodshed door. And the next picture is one of the little garbage door that she did at the house.
Which is great. That's where they actually come and get the garbage. They actually open the door. The garbage man would actually come and open the door and get the garbage out.
It says waste not want.
Waste not, want not. Well, I got the Frank Arthur part right. Thank y'all. And I'm sure there'll be some other things out that I would like some erudition on. That is that beautiful carved newel in the main stair, the main hall. There's a story behind that too, Andy.
Carved by Frank Arthur.
That's right. Okay. And that's saying something. And of course, there's that beautiful stair in the hallway, and there's a beautiful welcoming statue by our very famous Philip Duesenberg, who some of you are lucky enough to have some of his sculptures. And that was meant to be in that place to welcome everyone in to the front door. And of course, you'll see lots of artwork in this house. And what's amazing is there's so many artists in the Erskine family. Emma was an artist, of course. Harold Erskine was an actual architect, and so many of his prints and paintings are in the house. And not to mention, of course, on and on and on. So, and that's the entry door right there. And that's one of the car manuals by Frank Arthur as well. And then, of course, using, again, the native stone. Now, Andy, remind me that painting, that's the Lone Pine, right? The painting over that mantle, is that the Lone Pine? The pine tree that was there? That's not the one, okay.
That's a view from the top of Piney Mountain by local artists.
Okay, all right. There is another picture of that there. That's their beautiful living room, of course. And of course, now, that's as much as I've got on Linko. And thank you guys very much. And thank you again for letting me spend so much time with you guys the other night. And it was just a real fascinating thing for me. And there's so many more things I could show you. Now, this is another wonder, or another absolute treasure in this town. This is Spanish quartz. I've got two properties on this, two buildings on this property. It's currently owned by the Grady family. The Spanish quartz was built by a guy named Frank Crandall, and Mr. Crandall was here in the early 20s, which was sort of the heyday of architecture here in Tryon. He was quite a prominent citizen in Tryon. And Julia or anybody else, you're welcome to add to that. But he was very, very, very prominent and a very big socialite in town. Built Spanish quartz in the Spanish style, very much like Addison Meisner. He, of course, incorporated a lot of the European elements in it. And it's a 5-apartment complex. And it's currently, it's been in constant habitation for all these years, right? Yeah. It's amazing. The arches and colonnades. And again, the only thing about it is it's really hard to capture everything. It's such a rambling, large structure. It's kind of hard to kind of get the entire feel for the building. But it's amazing, and it's again one of our treasures here in town. And there's really lots of things you don't typically see in Tryon. The Mediterranean, the terracotta roof, all the arches. And of course, just the style of the stucco is something you don't really see anywhere else in Tryon much. And that's the back side of it, porches, etc.
No, that was the house next door.
Oh, that was the house next door? Okay. Oh, yes, you're right. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. And then that's Hidden House. That's the house that Mr. Crandall built for himself. Is that right? Right.
Harold, not Frank, Harold.
Okay. And we actually got to go inside Hidden House. It's a great, also very, very, very much in the same style. Oh, and there's my dear friend Julia. It's a great house, again, very Mediterranean, inside and out. I love the volume, the feeling of space, and of course the hewn beams. I was amazed to be able to actually go in there. That's a good view, looking at the main room, and then there again the arches that you see echoed from the Spanish quartz building as well. Let's see, yes. And is that a bedroom? That's the master bedroom, okay, thank you. That's actually like a survey, actually it's kind of a survey of the entire property, which shows you just how much property there was going back around. That's Melrose Avenue, and they own all of this up here. It was an amazingly large piece of property with several structures on it. So there's another of the Mediterranean fireplaces in the bedroom, and there's more of the arched windows. This house is actually, it's got some disrepair, but overall it's in very good shape. This house, which I love to death, it's not in the best shape. This was another house that was built by who?
Carol.
Okay, Carol.
We think it may have been a boarding house originally.
A boarding house, okay. Well, unfortunately, of course, it's not in the best shape, and I'm not sure if it can really be saved at this point. Anyway, now this house is a really neat house. This actually was a barn originally. This is also on the property, so let's see.
1905.
Okay. 05. I've got a little piece on this right here. Somewhere here, my little bunch of notes, okay? Somewhere here. Anyway, it's a cool, very interesting little house. I can't find that. Can't find those notes anywhere. Oh well. It was at what point it was built as a barn, and then eventually it was converted to a cute little shingle style house. This house actually is in decent shape. This house can be improved and can be made livable again. Again, that's more pictures going back up to Spanish. Now, did Ellison, who did that sculpture?
We think it may have been ours, and they were friends.
Yes. Okay, and that would be amazing if it was. And of course, we've talked about Homer Ellison in the past. My first talk featured El Tarn, his wonderful house up in Gillette Woods. And then there's another view of Spanish Court. So again, it's an amazing piece of property. And now, well, let's see. I need to scroll through here. And that's down in the guts of the thing, which is where I always like to go, down in the basement to see how things really work and to see the actual structure. Okay. That's
Dean,
enough of
I
that.
think you might want to mention that Spanish Court was designed by John Foster Searles.
Thank you.
And in the bulletin about the opening of Spanish Court, they talk about how Ellertson designed the wrought iron for this. And so your railing that goes up to the apartments, the thing you showed, that's Ellerson's sculpture.
That really is Ellison.
It sure is.
We suspected, but that is for sure. Okay. Thank you, Mike. And that's Mike McHugh, guys. And Mike's been another great one to help me not only to compile some, but also to provide a lot of this great information. Of course, Mike, you've been doing an architectural study now of Tryon, who are anxiously waiting to see the completion of, and he's nice enough to share some of what he has with me today too. But anything else that you'd like to talk about, I'm always happy to hear. More. I didn't realize we had, and there's more. Funny how that got out of order. There's one more nice shot of Lincoln. Now, that's the tree. Sorry, I'm putting you back on the spot, Andy. That tree was there for how many years? Forever and ever and ever?
It died in 1993 with the storm that sent it.
Yeah, and y'all watch it actually come down.
Many artists have painted that.
Wow, it's amazing. Okay, now we're back inside again. That's also back in Lincoln. I don't know how we got out of order, but those tiles. There's something very interesting about those tiles on that surrounding the fireplace there. Can't remember exactly, but they're very
Interesting, we take your word for it.
done by a famous tile artist somewhere along the way. Ooh, thankfully we're back out of Lincoln. Since I about stepped in it that time. Okay, in fact I've stepped in it already a lot of times. So, well now we changed houses again. Okay. Now, everybody's driven by this house a lot of times. Okay? And I bet a lot of you know a little bit about the history of this place. this is a house that was moved here. It was not originally, it was originally Mill Spring. This is probably the most historic house, I think, in this whole county, in one of the most historic houses in the state. You can almost say one of the more historic houses in this part of the country. And it just so happens to be owned by our dear friends, Litch and Wash, and they're sitting right back here. And they were, again, nice enough, so nice to invite me to come over and hear them talk about this beautiful place called Seven Hearths. And the house that was originally in Mill Spring, built in 1770 something, yeah, by the Mills family, as in Columbus Mills. They were British loyalists back in that war, and there's been a lot written about that family, and has been told in the past. But it was built, and let's see, it was built in the 1770s and stayed on that piece of property in Mill Spring. And that's the front of the house now. I've got pictures of the original house from before it was moved, and the construction here. So which I'll get to eventually. But that's the front of the house as you see. It faces Homer Field, and with it's a beautiful entryway and front door. That's a nice picture looking at the corner towards the front and the side with the beautiful gardens. And the gardens and landscaping was done by a very famous landscape architect named Balmer. That's right. Okay. Has everybody heard the name Balmer around here? He was very prominent back then. And I found it very interesting to hear from you guys that the chimneys, you think, how do you move a house like this, especially a house with that much masonry? But they were moved, and they were the inside of the inner brick was redone, right? And then and then the exterior masonry was reapplied.
Yes, they took the bricks down, and they used the old brick as a veneer over a new brick for the structure of the chimney. They rebuilt it the same.
Same exact standards, that's right. And what's amazing, when they took this thing apart, board by board, and they numbered all the boards, and they put them all back together on the side, just like you do with old log cabins, which we've been lucky enough to do a few of those in the past. But that's what makes it even more fascinating. This house is exactly like it was when it was originally built.
Where was it moved from?
Up in Mill Spring, where?
Bristol moved it.
Yes, Miss Brenton moved, that's right. And she hired an architect named John Ferguson, who I'd never heard of, who evidently had a practice here. And Holland Brady never mentioned when he had made his big talk about Tryon architects, I don't think John Ferguson was part of his presentation or part of his research. But the piece of paper says John Ferguson, Tryon, North Carolina, so I think that's kind of neat. We've found another architect that actually practices. You know what's amazing, guys, is that I've said this before, but for a town this size, 1,300 people, or whatever we are, to have had 46 practicing architects in this town is, I think, just amazing. That includes me, so I don't know if that's all good or not. But, anyway, that's the back side of the house, but of course it was the side you drove into originally when you would drive through the historic gates that were there. And of course that's the other side, the same chimney, the same exact rebuilding there. That's a millstone that was given to y'all by who?
Got from Mr. Balmer's house.
Mr. Balmer's house. That's really cool, a great connection there, absolutely. As you walk in from the parking area. And that's their front door. And you see the diamond motif? That motif is echoed many times on the inside in mantelpieces and other pieces of trim throughout the house. It's a recurring element that you see through. And that's also very common back in those days. Okay. And this is a beautiful mantel in the living room. And guys, can y'all remind me about the fan, the feature in the middle?
Yeah.
This.
Yeah, it was a part fan. It was just the center of it. It against the marbleized, the whole fireplace is grain painted. So it's pine, but it's painted with like mahogany. As you can see, and then that center carved fan element was just a common element that was used.
Yeah.
But it's beautifully carved.
What's neat is it's almost like a trunk void, it's almost like a veining effect.
Yeah.
Dean, can you repeat what
I need
people
to
are
say this.
saying? Can you repeat? Because we can't hear the contribution that they're making.
Okay, yeah, I'll repeat what they said. Okay, if I can repeat, okay. So what the guy said was that this is the common element there, but the neat thing is that the painting, the way the painting was done, was like a veining to give it almost a three-dimensional quality, and it was done throughout the house like that, and to give the effect. And there's some more example of the really intricate detail that you see all through this, not only this mantelpiece, but throughout many of the other mantelpieces in the house. So anyway, all right, going on, there's a detail of that, and that's just a large picture of the living room as you walk in. There's another. They highlighted that wainscot right here. You can see a better idea of this veining effect that they've used. The kind of paint they did was, again, almost like a there's a depth to it that you wouldn't normally have in a painting, especially in a house of this age. So I think it's fascinating. So let's see here. This is the coolest room of the house that actually wasn't originally theirs. There's a flanking room on the side. It was actually a porch originally, and Miss Britman came back and actually added this. Correct? She was the owner of the house when it was rebuilt and moved to Tryon. And she actually, this was an open porch, and she wanted to have a little side parlor. And I love the scale of this room. I love small rooms anyway, but this room just has the neatest feel to it. Now there's a room on the back side of the house that actually was built originally. This same exact size, same footprint. But she added this room, which is in the front of the house. So again, with all the same. Now, is that a Mills Monticello rug? A Lillian Mills, yeah. Which, of course, y'all can talk all about that. Julia can sure talk about that. There's several of these houses that all had either Lillian rugs or Ronnie's rugs throughout it, and those are just you hate to even step on them because they're so beautiful, and that's part of the great artistic legacy of this town as well. Okay, there's the front door, and interesting that the back of the front door is so very plain. The front of the door, of course, has all the intricate carving. But I love the strap iron, and it's the original strap iron. It was saved, and the original lock box for the doors, etc., was through there. So all this is so authentic and so thoughtfully reproduced all the way through. And that's one of my favorite places in the house right there. The little sitting room with that neat little fireplace and that wonderful musket that's not original to the house. One of your dad, okay. It looks very, very authentic though. Anyway, so and then that's the original kitchen, which is not now the kitchen, but it's the original kitchen. You can see a very large fireplace with all, of course, the pot hangers and everything that was a seriously working kitchen. That's where a lot of the cooking was done, and the neat brick insets there, and of course not as ornate a fireplace, a mantle, but still beautiful indeed. Okay, and there the two hosts right there, and their beautiful dining room right there, with another gorgeous fireplace in the back and a mantle back in the back too, and just a wonderful piece of history. There's that little piece of history right there. John Ferguson, the architect. I just had to capture that so I can do some more research on it myself. This is one upstairs. Didn't take a lot of pictures upstairs, but it's a neat staircase. And then what's neat about this room is that originally that entire space was one room. This was all one room here, but was Miss Britnall that decided she wanted to have a little more of a private space right here. So you can see where this fireplace is and the smell, it's against the corner. Once upon a time, it was in the middle of this bigger room, but then she put the wall there to separate this out, so it ended up with a fireplace in the corner like that, and it still works. But the other cool thing about this room, and I just have to talk about this, there's a secret stairwell right there. And I mean, obviously it's a stairwell because there's a door right there, but it's not a stairwell that many humans can get up, that's for sure. And let's see, that's in that same room, that's the corner shot of that little fireplace. And there, when you open that door, it goes up to the attic. And it's neat, but you know, there's no way I could fit up there. And I'm not sure if either Lynch or Wash has actually been able to fit up there either. It's kind of neat, Ken McIntyre managed to get up there, but nobody was looking, and that's another story. So anyway, it's just another neat, crazy old house, a wonderful thing. And that's how looking up the detail into that attic there. So, okay, and then that's, what is that room? That's a bedroom? Okay, that's what just upstairs there. Okay. And then this art here. This original, help me out, guys.
There's wallpaper that had been on the wall originally, was eaten through because it was put right on top. And so the syndicate through the early wallpapers, but
That's right.
that staircase picture didn't really show it, but there's some ribbons of paper that were saved.
Oh, cool. That's a good point, that the pine, that cedar, the pine actually ate through the wallpaper over
There's
time.
late 18th and early 19th century wallpapers, four examples that we found.
Wow, that's also really, really amazing. So,
And then the cornice was marbleized in that picture.
yeah, that one was a marbleized cornice. Again, a technique that was used to achieve that look, which is just, you know, again, these are local craftsmen. They didn't bring people from New York or Williamsburg. It was all local talent that did all this. It just was fascinating to me. And then there's another bedroom picture there. And where is that? Well, that's downstairs. That's showing the structure of the thing. And what's neat about it, you've got these big beams, and then you've got these half posts that are sawn in half, flat on top. They're the actual support joists of the house, which is just fantastic. That's the major beam that goes, the major support beam that goes all the way through the house. And these are the actual, like, you know, the posts. I don't know what wood they are, but they're massive. They're at least this big, and they're flat on top, of course, you know, to support the floor. But I thought that was really, really cool. Okay, how are we doing on time, guys? Oh, I'm in good shape. No, I'm not. That's more of the downstairs, the guts of the place. There's more of that floor structure, and that's actually the stair to going. That's from the main room downstairs going upstairs. That's the stair. And I thought that was neat that you start right there at the beginning, and they're rather steep, but they work. And there is a picture of the excavation of the rebuilding of the house at Harmon Field. When they first had moved, were getting ready to move the house, and they were digging the footings and foundation in preparation for it. Now that is the picture I was telling you about originally. That's the house in its original location in Mill Spring. But we don't know exactly where in Mill Spring it was, right?
It's on Silver Creek Road.
Oh.
3/4 of the way down past the little house. Right before you get toward the new entrances to the school, the new driveway entrance.
Yeah. And Silver Creek was it actually a real road back then?
I believe it was.
I guess it was.
Yeah.
Wow, I go down that road all the time.
It's buried across the street from that.
Wow. Okay, I'm sorry, thank y'all. What Lee said was that the house was actually on Silver Creek Road, the original location, just past where you turn off to go to the middle school.
Just before.
Oh, I'm sorry, just before, as you're coming from Highway 9. Okay, and it's on the same side of the road? Okay, so just before you get to the turn off to the middle school, this was the original house site. And across from there was the original cemetery, family cemetery.
They're still buried.
They're still there.
Right.
That's right, you can go see them now if you want.
That's fine.
The Bills family. Yeah. That's great, great fact, thank you. Now, we're changing locations again, finally. This is another one of my very favorite places, and amazingly enough, I've never been in this house. before yesterday. But I've always admired it. I've certainly known lots of folks who've been there and stayed there. And again, this is the progenitor of my firm. This is the great Russell Walcott, who started our firm. And actually, Russell, I'm not going to get into his biography, but he was a very famous Chicago architect that eventually designed houses for people moving to Tryon, because there was a big pipeline, of course, between Tryon and Chicago. A lot of the folks from Chicago would have summer homes here, or they would retire to Tryon, and it's still the case. And they would hire Mr. Walcott to design their home. Well, Mr. Walcott made enough trips down here, and of course, fell in love with Tryon and decided, I'm done with architecture. I'm going to come down here and retire. So he came down here and bought a farm, beautiful farm, right off Warrior Drive, and decided. And he also at that point had some health problems. I think he had diabetes or something else. He planned not to go back to work, but all of his former clients in Chicago sought him out down here, and of course, he couldn't stay retired. So he started designing houses again, and eventually took on a partner named Shannon Merriweather from Cincinnati, and they worked together for many years, and then finally Mr. Walcott did finally retire. And Mr. Walcott's daughter actually still lives on the family farm, and of course Mr. Merriweather years later took on this young fellow from Tryon named Holland Ray, and then you know what happened after that. So, all right, so great picture of Mr. Walcott in his Chicago office before he actually retired to Tryon. And the reason I mention that is because Mr. Russell Walcott designed our next house. And we're very honored and pleased to have the two current owners of that house here also with us today. So thank you very much, Gary and James, for being here. And to provide further illumination, since I know I'm going to forget half of what you told me yesterday. These guys are actually walking encyclopedias, not just on this house, but on, of course, Tryon history, and especially all the art that's in this amazing house. And it is a treasure trove of art. The same thing that Knight Hugh's written for years about, it's all in this house. George A., Lawrence Mazanovich, and the list goes on and on, all of famous, you can't even see walls because it's so covered up in art. And this is from a very early advertisement for Mill Farm Inn. It was by Mrs. Frances Williams, who owned it and who was not ever planning to have an actual inn as much as just a long-term guest house. That's right. And where people would come and stay for at least a month, right? And get 3 meals a day and have use of the grounds. And it was a very modern house. I mean, there was 8 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms, and it had all the modern amenities, et cetera, et cetera. But Russell Walcott actually designed this house when it was built. Now, the original mill farm was a mill. It was a grist mill, right?
In that first slide.
Where was it? Back? Oh yeah, that's it. That's actually the original mill that was on the property. There's an actual creek. There's part of the creek is still there, and there was a lake that actually fed it.
It's on the other side of 108.
On the other side of 108, that's right. But once upon a time, that was where everybody came to grind their corn, and I mean, everybody in town came to this mill originally. And then the mill burned down, and then eventually, how many years was it before Francis purchased it and built the current?
The original house and the mill were built in 1916 on land that they purchased from Andy Haynes' grandmother.
That's right.
Our land used to be part of Glencoe.
That's right.
And I don't know exactly that Frances Williams bought it, but it burned. She was running the inn in a white 2-story frame wood structure that burned to the ground in 1937.
37, okay. But then, soon thereafter, she built the current mill farm in the stone house that you see now.
Yes, she went to Tryon City Bank and borrowed the money and got Russell Walcott to design.
And by then, Russell Walcott was in Tryon. So, does that sort of connect the dots a little bit for y'all? A little bit for me too. I'm so glad y'all are here. Okay, anyway, and that was one of the great traditions of this, of course, this is the current building with all the ivy that was growing. And of course, y'all faithfully left a good chunk of the ivy on one of the side walls, which we'll see. But originally, there was ivy all over this building, but I also gave it part of its charm. But one of the great traditions was lunch out on the front terrace in front of the house. And almost every day, right? In nice weather.
And especially Sundays.
Especially on Sunday, of course. So that's a great historic photograph of that. And there is another Lillian rug of the inn, right? Oh, you're right. Well, I don't know how that happened. That's the original White Oak Plantation. Can't you see? Just everybody turn upside down. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't double check that one. But that's the original White Oak, the wood frame White Oak Plantation before it was rebuilt with brick, and that's way out there in Green Creek, if y'all ever been out there. Okay, and that woman that's upside down at the top of the picture, that's Lillian. She put herself in her rug. But just another great example of this wonderful artist and this great resource. Okay, now we're back right side up again. Now, who's that person in that very famous painting right there? I'll buy you dinner if you tell me, and y'all can't tell me. Julie, you know?
Homer Ellertson.
Now, you're not allowed to answer either. We have too many experts here. Yes, that is the great Homer Ellertson, of whom we have spoken many times already tonight. And Homer Ellertson, now tell me the connection between Homer and the inn and Francis.
I don't really know if there is one.
Okay.
They were here about the same time.
Yeah, they were, that's right. Okay, well anyway, that's a self-portrait that Homer Ellertson did of himself. And that's the most, that's the definitive portrait of Homer Ellertson. And we could talk all day about him, but that's a whole nother discussion.
The portrait was in Mike McHugh's show 23 years ago in 2000 at the Fine Arts Center.
Wow. And it's been in y'all's possession for a long time. And look at all that artwork. There's so many famous paintings back there. I couldn't begin to tell you. And they could, but you know, you'll just have to stay around afterwards for that. In fact, anybody that wants to stay around afterwards and come back and look at all these again, you're welcome to. Okay, more artwork. Those are Mazanovich's on the wall, which, you know, those are all, as far as I'm concerned, they're priceless. And there's a Mazanovich there, and there's a Duesenberry sculpture right there. The big painting on the top of the landscape, who did that, guys?
E. Paxton Oliver did the one on the right.
Okay.
She went to Mexico one time.
Okay. And I know you can keep going on this tonight.
Who was that? We couldn't hear.
E. Paxton Oliver. Okay. Which I can't tell you much. Anything we need to know about that, Mike?
Yes, she taught in Atlanta at the High Museum of Art.
Wow.
And she and her husband were equestrian.
Uh-huh.
So that's what brought them here about 1950.
1950. Did y'all hear that?
Now, something I really think we should share. Do you have another photo of the exterior of this house?
Yes, I do have a couple more.
Are you going to talk about France? About France.
Yes, because that's where Miss Frances Williams spent.
Okay.
That's where she was before she came here.
Yeah.
Grasse.
Okay.
Grasse, France. Yes. But thank you, because I was going to get there, but that's a huge connection to this place. All right, yes.
She was extremely famous for her bird paintings.
Her bird paintings.
Her bird paintings. If you got married in this town, you bought a print of one of her bird paintings at Blue Ridge Weavers.
Okay, did y'all hear that? Francis, the owner of Mill Farm, was a very noted. No.
The artist.
E. Paxton Oliver.
Oh, E. Paxton Oliver, of course. I'm sorry. Thank you. She was very noted for her bird paintings, and that's what you just had to do if you got married. You had to go buy a bird painting at Tryon at the Blue Ridge Weavers. Okay, thank you. Okay, again, this could turn into an entire art discussion, especially in this house. It just blows my mind. I don't see how you guys can concentrate on dinner with all this visual I can't be around. and that beautiful dining room right there. And again, there's just so much to talk about. I could spend an hour just on this one place for sure. Anything special about the dining room table?
It's just from Boston.
It's from Boston, okay.
Tell them about the rug.
The rug, oh yeah, that Lillian rug right there. Or is that Ronnie?
It's Ronnie.
That's a Ronnie Marcelo rug. Okay, my head's so full of stuff here.
It's one of the largest ones, and it came out of Elizabeth Riker's house at the end of Mimosa Lane.
Okay.
Ronnie designed it to go under her dining room table.
Okay, so that's one of Ronnie's largest ever rugs, and it was designed for Elizabeth Riker, who was from Spartanburg, right? See, I knew I'd get my hometown in there somehow. Who lived in the Mimosa Lane. Now, there's an interesting, the motif on that though is interesting because it has some symbolism.
It has cypress trees and also dogwoods, and we think the dogwood represents her time here.
And she was of some Greek descent.
She's from the Mediterranean.
Mediterranean somewhere. Let's just say she was from Greece. But she's from Spartanburg and she's Greek. She was probably my aunt somewhere along the line. So if you're going to bequeath that to anybody, you might want to think about me, guys. Again, so many great stories. I can't keep them all straight. I was like a kid in the candy store in here, just like all the houses I went through. But gosh, it was just amazing. So, all right, well, again, can't spend forever. And here we are. This just one little hall is like an art gallery. And when you're pointing at what, Gary?
James bought the entire collection of George A.'s son out of Florida. All those etchings are in Mike McHugh's book. And I'm pointing at the photo of George A. in the middle.
In the middle. You've seen this, of course. Did you bring any of the copies of your book? Perfect time to sell a few. Well, just having y'all over here is just it's just amazing. Well, there it is. I did get a picture of him. That's George A. Okay, all right. There's one of the typical bedrooms in the end, and each one had its own bathroom, and again loaded up with artwork. And there's another one right there, just beautifully done. And that was one thing that y'all built. It's like a conservatory, but it's what do you call it?
It's a father.
A father, right? It's a wonderful place to go when it's when it's not 100 degrees, because it's not air conditioned. It is heated, but it's not air conditioned. It's a wonderful to get a little table in there. You can actually take your meals out there. It's really cool. And it's just far enough away from where the swimming pool is and the terrace to be a little focal point out there. It's very beautiful, of course. And that's the swimming pool. That's looking at the back of the house. And then to the right is the pavilion that y'all built in the same spot that was the original pavilion that burned down or that hit by a tree. Tree destroyed. Okay, which is pretty typical around here also. So this is big enough where they used to have their smoking galleries in the evenings, but it's very, very complimentary to the overall architecture. So, okay, and there is the ivy-colored wall that we decided to keep, which I think is very important. And again, that's sort of your first view when you first drive up. That's what you see, and then you walk through the gates, and that's the front of the official front of the house. And with the beautiful grounds around it, and that's a little bit more up close first view of the entry. And then there is the official entry portico that you walk through, and there's their National Register plaque on the wall, and the two lions that are guarding the door. And there's something specific, something notable about the two stone pillars. Is that correct?
So Russell Walcott owned a stone quarry in Saluda.
Aha.
And when he built the house, all of the stone from the house and the columns and around came out of his own quarry.
That's a great fact too. Did y'all hear that? Russell Walcott actually owned a quarry, a rock quarry up near Saluda, and provided a lot of the rock work, and certainly provided the rock work for these two stone pillars right here. So that's part of his contribution personal contribution to the architecture here too. So that's another great thing to know. Okay, now we've changed houses again. Do I have either Mimi or Jerry here today? Oh, hey guys, I didn't see you guys there before. Well, this is the little cottage that they live in at the end of Villa Barbara Lane. And I guess that's because this is Villa Barbara. This is the other great Erskine, extant Erskine house that was built. Oh, but I'm so sorry. I've got to go back and remember about Grasse France. Okay. Now, Miss Williams spent a lot of years in Grasse, right? And part of what she wanted to replicate or recreate in this house was her time in France. And so the architecture of Mill Farm, sorry, going back, was very evocative of Provençal farmhouses. And so it was very much of an echo of that. Anyway, is that enough reference? Okay, all right, that's good. I didn't want to not remember that. Okay, so now we're at this other wonderful structure. It was built by the Erskine family called the Villa. And it's right off of Erskine Road. And so, you know, Charles and Emma, I told you, built Lincoat originally. And sometime thereafter, their son, Ralph Erskine, came back to Tryon. And was you know, wasn't an architect, but he was quite a builder himself. And Andy, and maybe y'all can just chime in, and whoever else. He was a craftsman. His official occupation was building chairs. He started the Tryon Chair Factory, eventually the renowned Danners Furniture Company, and he built this villa. And named it Villa Barbara after his wife. But very Italian, provincial Italian villa style. And of course, I'll show you in a minute, the pergola that you first walk through to get to the main entrance has these beautiful columns of Verona marble from Italy. And they were the gift from an antique dealer in New York City. But what's great, it's very Palladian. I don't know if you know who Andrea Palladio was. It was the great Roman architect, and his influence is everywhere, but especially in this house. So this is the living room at the villa with these beautiful big beams, and which are, I mean, that's the structure. And these two beautiful Palladian windows, other classic Palladian windows on either end, let an amazing amount of light in. And it's beautiful light too, it's not harsh light. Anyway, again, Mimi and Jerry, thank you so much also for letting me spend some time with y'all and learn more about this amazing place. Again, never had been in this house before, so this was a real labor of love for me here. Okay, that's also the living room. We're looking at the other side, again to the flanking plated window on the other end, which is fantastic. And of course, the view, the way it sits up on this hill, it's all on the same ridge as Lincoln. It's all the Erskine ridge up there, and they've got this incredible view. They look down on Harmon Field. They got the entire expanse of all the mountains. It is just to die for. And then that big fireplace right there. And even the scale of this is huge. Those ceilings are at least 13 feet. Mimi, is that right, Jerry? 13 feet. So that's, you know, not your average ceiling height. And again, a lot of beautiful artwork in this house as well. Let's see here. And again, that's the dining room, which is a very beautiful room. And again, there's something really special about that dining room table. Maybe if you remind me of it, I'll tell everybody else. Somebody famous sat at that dining room table once upon a time. You hear that? Some guy named George Washington was said to have sat at this table.
And there are two leaves that are the same size as what you see there.
Yeah, what you see there are just actual leaves, and there are two other leaves that are the same size that make that table twice as big. Essentially, you can see how many 35 at one time? Now, were there 35 of Ralph's chairs at one time?
Ralph's chairs were just
Okay. By the way, those are Ralph Erskine's chairs. Grandpa, right? That's Grandpa's chairs, okay? There's a little more up close view of the beautiful table and some of the intricate, beautiful chairs. And yet they're so dainty and light, and yet they're strong. They're really, really strong. So again, just another example of all the artistic talent that was in the Erskine family and still is. Between the sculpture, the furniture, the art, it's just amazing how it can all run one family like that. Okay, so again, that's also looking back at the other side and looking in the dining room there. Okay, so now that's actually in the front room when you walk in. It's an entry hall, and right now it's kind of a sitting room, TV room for y'all. But it was originally just the entry hall, and then that's the beautiful stairwell going upstairs, and that's going up the stairs with more artwork. And I don't remember who actually painted the other two, but I know that painting that you're looking at on that wall, that is of the Bartol children. And Mimi's in that picture, and Chris is in that picture. I thought that was really cool. Again, I get confused as to who the artists were and who they were of. Your mom painted that? I couldn't remember if she painted it or she was the subject. She painted it. Once again, another amazing Erskine artist.
She was an amazing artist.
Now, this is real architecture. And everybody will say, why do you have this in here? Well, Mike thought very highly of this structure, and I think it does represent a certain vernacular in town. Okay. And like to quote your synopsis here, Mike, unlike dwellings of native people or humble log cabins of white settlers, there exists virtually no scholarly design studies of America's mobile homes. The earliest examples were built on skids, moved by horse teams in the 1870s, and then, of course, there was steel travel trailers in the 20s with technology, and then, of course, World War II. By the time World War II came around, they were made into permanent housing, and so they, the actual progenitor of the mobile home goes back actually to the late 1800s, believe it or not, So to find a really old mobile home is pretty amazing. It's actually a scarce thing. Anything before the mid-70s is really hard to find. Well, this is one of them, right? And it's on Howard Gap Road. It's a single wide trailer, and it has a very spacious homestead with a real carport, storage, plenty of fire pit, vegetation, and a nice service wing on the back, and a nice wooden deck on the front, which I think is lovely. And let's see, and of course, the manufactured housing industry has come a long way since then, but it does have its place. Anyway, so now can I ask why Victoria?
It's a really unusual brand.
Oh, that was the actual brand of the, oh, okay. Did not know that. Okay. This is probably one of the last one of its kind, right?
It's the only one I know of.
Oh, my Lord. I knew there was a really good reason
on
why
the
I
National
might have this
Register of
information.
Historic Places.
Does that mean that the old Ford LTD that's in the picture was in on expiration too? Oh, there's that diamond motif again. See the door down there? That's the diamond motif. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Okay, well y'all, you've hit the pinnacle now. There's nothing else we can say that's going to top this.
The real fact about mobile homes, maybe like 20, 25 years ago, someone figured out that North Carolina was second in the nation, only behind Texas, in number of mobile homes. And the reason is that we had almost both, I can't remember, but we had two big mobile home manufacturers in the state. And thus we had more people living in trailers than the other states.
Boy, that makes my heart just swell with pride. I don't know if y'all heard what Mark Pruitt just said. See, he's talking about a storehouse of almost useless information. Mark said that our Tar Heel State was the second leading manufacturer of mobile homes in the whole United States behind Texas.
Second leading user.
User, okay. Well, that's even more impressive. Okay, on that note, we're gonna move ahead. That's enough. All right, y'all, okay. So, now where are we here? That is, what is that? Is that the tea house? Is that the tea house? Hold on here.
Is there any way to make it any bigger on the screen?
No, you can't. Unfortunately, there's no way to make that bigger. Because it's the TV screen. That's the only bad thing about that. I'm sorry. What is this? Oh, this is Valhalla. Okay, this is a great. This building's been around forever. I mean, from the 20s. It was one of the many weaving operations in Tryon. And I remember from when I was a kid driving up to Saluda and such. And it's still there, of course, it's there. There it is. Okay, all right. So, in the 1890s, William Gillette, who everybody knows, Margaret Morley, they were the ones, some of the ones that really popularized the indigenous craft in our area, which we're so famous for. And so the whole craft revival movement had a real foothold in Tryon. And of course, Mountain Industries, 1912, and Ralph Herschel, which we already talked about, the Tryon Chair Factory in 1910. And that was really the beginning of the real heyday of the craft movement. Of course, then you followed up with Blue Ridge Weavers and Appalachian Hand Weavers, and most of all of them, pretty much all of them are gone now, except for Valhalla, which still exists. And it was they have a weaving establishment and a shop, it's the classic primitive mountain style architecture, and it used to be more hidden because it was surrounded by trees. It was darker. It really blended. You didn't really hardly notice it when you drove by, except for the sign. But it's really not changed. I don't really have any real pictures other than what Mike has sent me. But it's a real classic example, one of the few examples remaining of our craft industry and the weaving heritage of our town here. So I thought it was very appropriate that we put that in there too.
I was going to say, I live right next door to that.
Do you?
Carol Lawrence family used to have the Valhalla Weaving Center, and the building is just like it was before. It's all the wood, has all the things that you look at the door and you think it's functional.
Wow.
It hasn't done anything with it. I know Stone Cottage that's right next door to it, built in 1935. But the Valhalla Weaving Center is still there. And when I tell people around town, they say, oh, we miss it so much. It was such a fun place to go.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was. It wasn't just a weaving center. It must have been a social. Something.
Well, it was built in the 40s.
Yeah.
And at that time, 176 was the major highway in the mountains.
It was the only way to get there. Right.
And so it not only retailed Tryon craft, it retailed regional craft.
Wow.
The Lawrence family brought in all sorts of stuff.
Wow, from other places.
And
it's still there.
and Carol still has some of that.
That's just amazing. So I don't know if y'all heard much of that, but it really is almost exactly intact now, with some of this original artifacts and some of the original products that were sold in the heyday by the Lawrences. And so that right there makes it amazing as a piece of history, like frozen in time. And I think that's really cool.
Everything's in there. You look at the windows right now. It looks like they could be running next week.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing that so much.
It has the original carbon tetrachloride fire extinguisher.
Okay. I can't do better than that. Carbon tetrachloride fire extinguisher. And how many buildings in Tryon can you say that about?
Tryon Country Club has one.
Tryon Country Club. Okay, that's a whole other subject.
Filled with carbon tet in the club room.
Oh boy.
Really?
Yeah. She said that she lived right next door to Valhalla and said that it has not changed at all. In fact, so many of the crafts are there in the same windows that they haven't moved in years. And it looks like it was just opened last week. And that's what's amazing. It's again, it's frozen in time. It's like a museum of craft history in Tryon. So, you can drive up there and see it, can't you? I think that's really cool. All right, very quickly, God, I'm so bored. I'm so sorry. This is, one of my very favorite buildings. Of course, my family has a big connection to this place. It was the Lake Tea House. And some of you guys have been here long enough to remember having gone there. And it was a real gem for Tryon. One of the places to go in Tryon where everybody, the place that we're so proud of, along with Pinecrest and some other places. Unfortunately, the tea house is now been turned to a residence. And so I'm personally very sad to lose it as forever and ever as a wonderful place to go. But it was started by my great uncle Ernst Cahulas, who was brought over from Greece by my grandfather and put to work in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and eventually went out on his own and eventually was able to come up here and start not only the tea house, but also Sunnydale in the off season. And I did not know this, Mr. McHugh, that it is believed that J. Foster Searles designed this building.
It's known it was designed by J. Foster.
It's known. It's definite. I did not know that. I never knew that. That's really cool. Was this the only log type structure that he ever did?
No. He designed many log structures.
He did?
Yes.
Boy, I got to go back to school now. I'm so sorry, but that's so cool to find that out. Yeah, J. Foster Searles, of course, very famous architect who I've also discussed many times in the past. And if I ever do another one of these shows, which you probably don't want me to do, I'll talk more about J. Foster Searles next. Okay, anyway. Okay, well, there we are back at some more pictures of Mike's of Spanish courts, and we've talked enough about it. Now, we are now talking about another set of buildings in downtown Tryon that I bet you everybody in here has been to at least once or twice. And these pictures come courtesy of my dear friend Scott Lane. And these are, of course, what we call now 13, 15, and 17 South Trade Street, which includes, of course, not only Missile Dimes on the corner, but the building that was Missile Dimes on the corner, which is now the Nest, the great gift shop, and then right next to there is Della's, the bottle, the famous watering hole that everybody loves to go to, and right next to there is where my dear friend Julia Calhoun hangs out with her many ventures that she takes, which includes Tryon Toy Makers and the Carolina Chocolatiers and blah 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 blah, and the bookshelf, and how many other ventures you've got going in there. It's amazing how much you can put in one space. But those buildings were, of course, they were all original individual shops. And then at some point in time, when Tryon, sort of went downhill like so many towns, eventually Tryon Federal Bank took all three of those buildings over. And probably some of y'all remember when it was, just totally painted white and one long facade awning put across the front. And it stayed bank for a long time. And then when Tryon Federal moved to their new facility right down the road here, the building sat for a while until Scott and Gail had the courage and the foresight to purchase the buildings and to try to bring them back to their former original glory, in the original conditions and the materials, etc. So we were able. That's one of the original photographs of looking down the heights towards Missile Dimes, towards the corner. Now, is that one of Hansel Month's? Yeah, because I see the life of Hansel Month was a very famous Life magazine photographer and did a series of photographs in Tryon all over. Fantastic historic photographs that she took. They caught so much of the life of Tryon. That's another great study. That could be another Tryon talk for that matter. Anyway, what's that?
It will be.
It will be good. Okay. Anyway, that's looking in the heyday of when it was Missile Dimes on the corner, and that was the Jackson Building, and what's the third building?
Rippy building, TA Rippy.
Rippy. Okay. I mean, it was occupied by different people over the time. Now, and I will tell you, now that's Mistleton. That's the original Mistleton, which was the place everybody hung out in Tryon, and y'all have heard this probably 1,000 times. Of course, you know, that's where you went to see and be seen and to catch all the news and the stories. And of course, when the train used to come through Tryon and get ready to make the big trek up the grade, they had to unhitch half the train because they can only take half a load up at one time because it was such a steep grade. So the train would have to get out, spend a couple hours in Tryon until the train came back to get them. And so that gave them an excuse to kind of wander around Tryon and go to Mistleton's and get us ice cream soda and whatnot, and essentially be immersed in the Tryon. And some of the people just fell in love so much, they decided, I'm not going anywhere else. And they stayed. And so, of course, Mistleton's was famous for a lot of the celebrities used to hang out there, of course, all the names you hear, Perry Como and
F. Scott.
F. Scott Fish, who wrote a poem about their ice cream sundaes, blah, blah, blah. And of course, David Niven. And George Gershwin wrote part of his concerto in F, sitting at the soda counter. I know that for a fact. And Hemingway actually came there once too, so blah. Anyway, we decided we wanted to honor that. And of course, on the second floor originally was Dr. Palmer and Dr. Jerry's office, which is the original infirmary, until, of course, the original St. Luke's Hospital was built, which I couldn't include in this show today. And then also, there were other things. The Blue Ridge Weavers was in this building one time, and the Masonic Lodge was upstairs. And that's what at one point there was the little Mason's symbol in the middle of the building was Punk Shop. So this building was a lot of things, and it really was the hub of the community forever and ever and ever. And thank goodness that we were able to go back and save this. And Scott Gale had, again, the foresight and the determination to do it right, and to go through all the steps of getting it through the historic, the National Archive, the Historic Trust, and followed all the rules. And so that's, oh yeah. Those are some of the original employees of.
That's the original post office.
That's the original post office?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's how the table grape business got started in Ryan.
Yeah.
People stop on the train and these kids go out selling grapes.
Exactly.
That's really,
Yeah.
okay. Tryon grapes were famous the world over, as table grapes. Served in all the great hotels in New York, etc. And that's how they first became popular. These little kids would take them out and deliver them to the people on the train when they were stopped. So that's another great fact. Thank you, Tom. All right. Okay, there's another picture of Mistleton's from 1913.
That's the first version.
That's the first one. And then it burned. That's the one that burned. Right. It didn't change much afterwards, but it did burn. Okay. And that's the fire, right? Yeah.
We got a fire station after that.
Yeah.
That's right. Anyway.
What did he say?
What did he say? They what?
So we got a fire station after that.
Yeah, they put a fire escape in after that. Yeah, good idea. Now you can also see how far it goes down. There was no side street going down the side of that once upon a time. There was no Oak Street going down there originally. That was added much later. Okay. All right. Hello. Get on over here. I'm sorry. All right. What was that?
That's looking north on Trade Street.
That's looking north on Trade Street. Okay. Again, all these wonderful old pictures, and that's a postcard from I guess the 40s. Looking at again back when there was still the individual buildings, and that's kind of how we deduced the color scheme that we have now in the buildings and the awnings and such. Now we tried to give couldn't find a lot of color photographs or postcards, but that's how the best we could do to come up with is being as authentic as we could as far as the original colors that the buildings were and the awnings and the storefront and all the other elements of the exterior. Now, what's happened since then, and there's another looking from the other side, more looking south with Mistleton on the corner, and then that's the picture of the soda fountain, which was the famous gathering place of everybody in the old days. And that's what it looked like when Tryon Federal took it over and painted everything white and connected everything with that awning across there. That was the bank there for many, many years. And it was now this is after Scott and Gail bought it and the real work began of having to tear out everything that was there in the bank and get back to the original materials, which include the original metal ceiling and then the original fenestration and the original floors. It was a it was a real effort to go back and save everything we could about that. And I still got to give my dear friend Mike Harriman a lot of credit for being so persistent to get this right. You see all the stuff that was taken out of the building, all the old insulation, etc. So it was just it was just a lot of work and a lot of mess, which is what a lot of old buildings are. This is going back to start to recreate the facades in the storefront. Again, trying to be as accurate as we could. And that's again looking from the inside. That's the inside of what was Miss Dine's, and which is now the nest. And then at the end, we wanted to go back. We knew we couldn't scrape all the paint off because the National Register people, the historic people, said you can't go back and sandblast. That's the worst thing you can do to brick. So what we wanted originally, was white on the front, but the side was unpainted brick. So the closest thing we could do was recreate that original color brick so it's actually a painted brick. And that's okay. You can actually repaint brick that's been painted. They don't want you to paint brick that hasn't been painted, but if the brick was already painted, then you can go back and paint it again. So we decided to go back and replicate the original red brick color as much as we could, and that's how that ended up. One of these days, if Mr. Lane is persistent enough, we're going to recreate the logo on the very top corner up here, which is there. One of these days, it'll say Missile Mounts across, which is like what it said originally. It's not an advertisement, it's a piece of historic art. And so we're going to recreate that one day. All right, and then now, this is the inside of the Bissell Dines apartment upstairs. Not apartment, condo. That's one thing, of course, the three retail spaces downstairs, which I already described, and upstairs there's 3 beautiful condominiums, which are accessible by elevator, and they're all wonderful. They're different sizes, and they all have their own features, but they're all great spaces. They're all currently occupied, correct, Scott? Okay. All right. And then there's an example of a beautiful tin ceiling, etc. And then that's the beginning of the awning over Julia's store. And once again, just one step after another, the whole evolution. And that's how it looked when it was done. And so we're all very proud of what those buildings become. That's the basement of the building. It's now a fun place to go. That's now what is now called Brooks Tavern, which was Harper's not too long ago. And we actually designed, we designed a long time ago to be a pub. It was actually originally designed for the Polaro family because Mr. Dilla's husband, Joe, who unfortunately passed away, sadly, from cancer, had a dream to have his own brew pub, a very English-style brew pub. And we had originally designed it for the Polaris. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. But then, of course, it became Harper's, and then in the last couple of months, or actually the last few weeks, has been reopened as Brooks Tavern. So we're happy to see a thriving business back in there now, and we hope that they will be around for a long time. Okay, and that's the side of the building again. The back? No, that's the side of the building. Yeah. Okay, and then again, more of the demo pictures from upstairs. They weren't quite in order, but that's okay. And that's more of the construction, and that's going through, looking at the apartments upstairs. And just, if y'all were here around then, you saw this, evolving month by month and week by week. And that's also back downstairs again, where Brooks is now. All right, now, this is another fairly well-known house. There's been several things in its past, and it's also just happened to be owned by Mr. and Mrs. Lane. This is Stonehenge, which is, I think, one of the coolest houses, very most unique houses in Tryon, Hughes building. And it was built, now Scott, you will have to help me here. What year?
35.
35?
Costas from Ohio.
Which?
The Costas.
Oh, the Costas. like Tom Costa. Yeah, okay, as their home.
Yes.
Right, and it was their home for many, many years.
Yes.
And the coolest thing about this house is made from huge native stone,
Hence the name.
hence the name Stonehenge, exactly. I mean, you know, the Grove Park Inn, this is kind of like a mini Grove Park. These rocks are tremendous, and they are just, it just takes your breath away. Now, who's that?
Earlier families.
Earlier families, not your family. Huh?
No, I
No, you know, okay. Well, all right, so for years it was the Costas residence. At what point in time was it turned into the inn, Stonehenge Inn?
70s?
70s?
I think the 50s.
That long ago, really? Wow. Well, there's where it sits, y'all. It's got this absolutely gorgeous setting right at the foot of Tryon Peak. And it still has that same setting. That's the original, the swimming pool is still in its original place, the original pool building, made out of that same native stone, is still there, and Scott and Gail have restored it beautifully. That's a far-off view, looking at what? I can't tell.
That's the original layout. That's just the guest house, the pool house, the
Oh.
main house. It was bigger, just one back. How'd you get it so small?
I don't know. I wish I could blow it up. Yeah, I can. It's a touch screen. I didn't know that. You guys got to remember, I'm the least technical guy in the whole world. Well, there you go. There's everything. The whole compound is right there. Cool.
Now, Dean.
Would you like to?
Dean,
Yeah.
did Holland ever tell you the story of the orangery here?
No. There's a lot of things he didn't tell me. Well, you're committed.
The whole front of the Costa house was glassed in as an orangery to grow oranges and lemons and things like that.
Did you know that?
You might have a picture.
And
Maybe.
when Holland was a boy,
Uh-huh.
the first time he ever saw an orange tree was inside there.
I'll be doggone. All right, did y'all hear that? Okay, the orangery. The first time my dear partner, Holland Brady, ever saw an orange tree was inside that house. That is so cool. And maybe there is a picture. Well, there's the glass. Okay, there are the big glass windows and inside, so it was like a solarium almost. And there were oranges and lemons growing in there.
Keep going.
Oh, yeah? Okay, sure, why not? Oh, there's a red door. It's part of Episcopal Church and part inn, and part house. There's a great shot coming in inside. You can look at that rock work is just so amazing, that tile roof. Doesn't it look like the Grove Park? Give me the vibe. Okay. I don't see orange trees, but it could
Look
be.
to the left. Those are plants. The plants back in there.
Oh, yeah. Those are orange trees? That's a hot house. That's where it was. That's it right there. I'll be doggone. Y'all, I've learned so much today. I hope y'all learned as much from this presentation as I have. I want to thank y'all for your patience. You're really about to get it. There it is. There's the solarium right there. Fantastic. Of course, that's the modern kitchen of the Lanes, which is wonderful. Again, bring back so much of the original stonework back into it right there. And there's a gorgeous picture of the springtime. This place is just a paradise in the spring. All year, but especially in spring. So it is a fantastic thing. It was, when did you guys buy it, Scott?
12 years ago.
Okay. And, okay. So it had been in white up until that point, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, we sure are proud that Scott and Gail bought it. And there's that wonderful, huge, wonderful combination living dining room space being used to its fullest for some great event. Am I in that picture? Probably not.
Head of the table.
Anyway, but it shows you the beautiful character, the beautiful beams and everything in there. Oh, and there's their national register plaque too, by the way. So anyway, that's again the pool house today, and there's a beautiful shot of the moon. By the way, there's a super big blue moon tonight, one of the biggest moons ever tonight, and we actually think we have a beautiful night with no clouds to see it. Okay, and that's the grounds, and that's in the snow, and that's looking down on the pool from the house. Oh, gosh, I thought we were done. Okay, if y'all want to leave, go ahead. I will be mad. Listen, we got one more building to look at, and this is just about my favorite building in town. Gary and James, thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for everything you did. Okay. Anyway, all right, it's time to quit. But there's one last little place that you may have been in Tryon, and I think it's called the Tryon Movie Theater. And, you know, especially if you were here long enough, a long time ago, to see what it used to be compared to what it is now, thanks to this guy and his dear wife, it's an amazing transformation. And we're so proud to have been part of it. And that's it today, okay? But that's it a long time ago. Actually, after they took all the seats out, but that's in this old day with all the peeling fabric and everything. It was in horrible shape. And then the whole we had to take the entire back of the building off and rebuild it. But I will tell you something, a neat fact about the original Tryon Theater. It was the first use of acoustical plaster in the United States. Another thing, I would say it was the first air-conditioned public building in the state of North Carolina. That's not right. I knew I was stretching on that. But acoustic plaster is a big deal. And in the old days, you could stick your finger in the wall. It was that soft. Yeah, it was really. So anyway, so again, a ton of work went into it. Again, we tried to make it as historically accurate, trying to bring back some of the original glory. This, speaking of Earl Stillwell, we mentioned before, Earl Stillwell, one of his most famous claims to fame is the designer of many, many great movie theaters and movie palaces throughout the state. And he designed the original Tryon Movie Theater. And so we try to bring back some of his original design and try to get as much of the Art Deco motif as we could, since that was really the heyday of when this was. This is looking back at the balcony as it's being improved. This is a long, long labor of love. This was redoing the marquee. These are the new beautiful seats, and there, of course, was the contest that the patrons got to vote. We couldn't decide which kind of these luxurious seats we wanted to put in, so we put one of each in the lobby and let people just sit in which one. And so everybody got to vote for their favorite chair, and that's how we ended up with the chairs we have down there right now. And of course, all the beautiful colors that we came through, and I will give my dear partner Julie a lot of credit, because she's the one that did so much of a nudge and helped out with the color, which I'm useless at. Anyway, so that's it now. And I don't know what great event that was, but anyway. So that's it. A lot of great things there. All right, y'all. Well, anyway, that's it.
Well, we came close to 7. I need to say one more thing. Julia, go ahead.
I just want to get a quick note that when we were talking about Spanish Fort, that Frank Crandall did. His nephew, Harold Crandall, incredibly gifted artist, and he did costumes for the little theater, designed and built La Verge just down the street. And it was an inn, and he was a fabulous chef. And people came from all over the southeast, frankly, to come eat at La Verge. And that was, so the Crandall connection. Harold Crandall, the nephew, married a little girl, Elizabeth Grady, daughter of the Dr. Grady, the earliest doctor, one of the earliest doctors. So that.
Thank you.
I want everyone to know that this wouldn't have been possible tonight without the help of the Tryon Community Polk County Community Foundation. In fact, our latest grant from them was earmarked specifically for the Tales of Tryon. This is going to enable us to give you more and better presentations next year. Hope next year we can be back more or less on our pre-COVID type schedule. We want to go gradually with it, but we can have a presentation about every other month next year, and that is being planned right now, and you'll be given timely notice. But I didn't want to end this without thanking the Community Foundation. We're very grateful to them for their help.
Thank you all again very much for being here. Sorry I ran over, but I also want to thank the last person I want to thank is my dear friend Carrie Bass, who has helped me on every one of these presentations. She helps put all these things on the little drives and organize things. So without her, I wouldn't be here, that's for sure. So good night, y'all. Thank you.